The views, comments, stories, and opinions shared within this podcast are my own or those of my guests, and in no way represent the views of the company or companies that I or we work for. All stories, events, and tales shared within this episode may or may not have happened in the manner in which they are told. They may or may not have even happened at all. The details have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty alike. This is Squawk Ident. You're listening to Squawk Ident, an aviation podcast dedicated to the journey and the challenges surrounding the life and career of Aviator Tony and his guests. Together, we will explore the many pathways to an aviation profession, the realities of what a professional aviator can expect in today's marketplace, and we share many stories along the way. I'm your host, Aviator Tony, an airline pilot currently flying for a legacy airline with close to 20 years on the flight line. This is episode 36 of Squawk Ident, recorded on the 2nd of April, 2020, from the Aviator Sound Studios somewhere in Southern California. On this episode of Squawk Ident, I'm joined by our Squawk Ident co-host, Rob D. Together, we will dive into how this COVID-19 outbreak has affected our flight schedules, our quality of life, and how there are practically no passengers in the aircraft, at the airport, and anywhere else with this current lockdown situation that is happening among most of the states in the United States. We'll also dive into how all of this is affecting how we operate, from NOTAMS that are constantly being updated about closed runways due to all of the parked airliners across the country, to how our FAA medical expiration dates have been suspended up until later on in the year. We'll also dive into social distancing and what that means for our time at home with our family. So come along with us as we talk about this journey in aviation and how we are completely in uncharted territories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, right after a brief word from our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I want to take this time to give a special thank you to a captain that I spoke with on our last show on episode 35, Captain Adam. We talked about his spectacular journey in aviation all the way up to the present day. Since our last conversation, a lot has happened, not just with us, but with all of us here in the aviation community and around the world as well. Now that all this COVID crisis news is dominating every aspect of our lives, we have a lot to deal with. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've experienced in this situation, what's happening around the world, what's happening with our airline schedules, what the tone and the attitude is like while flying out there on the flight line. But I'm not going to talk to you about this alone. Today I'm going to be joined by my co-host, joining us from his fortress of isolation, where he has a garage stocked full of toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and face masks. Enough, at least, to outlast a few weeks of lockdown. From somewhere in Flower Mound, Texas, he is a former international and professional racquetball champion, a member of the 9G Club, an AMP, an avionics tech, and currently a 737 pilot for a U.S. legacy carrier we call Legacy Airlines. Please help me in welcoming Rob D. Rob, how the hell are ya?
I'm doing well, Tony. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. This week's been tiring. Not a lot of flying, but I was out there on the flight line, and things are, I've been doing this a couple decades. I know you've been doing this a couple decades. and I've been flying around with captains that have been doing this for 3, even 4 decades. And we all, I think, are in agreement that we've never experienced anything like this before. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would totally agree. It has been very alarming at the rate that the airline has, seen the reduction in passengers, and just as alarming, which we'll get to it here shortly, on how the schedules have been reduced to almost really, really nothing. So that's it's very, very scary
Yeah.
to 1 month ago, everything was just fine, to here we are, everything's coming to a screeching halt.
It really is, and it's very eerie to be out there. I mean, the entire country, if not most of the world, is on some kind of stay-at-home recommendation or stay-at-home orders. There's hashtag stay home, or what was it? Did you say you saw one on social media, hashtag stay home or something like that?
Yeah, hashtag stay home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
and people are doing parades out there. They're having community parades so that the neighbors can see each other and the kids can see each other, and the chalk
yeah,
drawings. I was watching
yeah,
NBC Nightly News last night, and they had a couple heartfelt stories. They always do a heartfelt story at the end to try to bring some positivity to the world when they're giving their nightly world news. But obviously, what's been dominating the airways out there is all this COVID business, which is a very, very scary and stressful thing that all of humanity is going through right now. But at the end, they had a couple heartwarming stories, and one that really stuck out for me, at least, was the sidewalk chalk art that all the kids are now doing in the neighborhood with rainbows, and we're stronger together, and we're going to get through this, and
yeah, cool.
and spreading
Yeah,
the peace and love, and that really is what we need to be focusing on as much as possible.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so to all those that are staying home and keeping a distance from people and their loved ones in an effort to keep them safe, my hat's off to you. It's not easy to do,
Yeah,
and good job.
definitely,
But
definitely.
I actually got a scary phone call a couple days
You
ago.
did.
I think I told you about it. Yeah. So I was in between my previous trip and the trip I just finished yesterday. And so I was at home, and we've decided to plant a really nice vegetable garden in the backyard. One bigger than we've ever planted before. We figure, hey, if we can get some good veggies growing in the backyard, maybe that's going to reduce our necessity to go to the store in the coming
Yep.
months ahead. So that's what we did. As a family, we planted a very large vegetable garden. I got bok choy and radishes and potatoes and tomatoes. And I mean, it's the works, zucchini. So we're all looking
Nice.
forward to it, and out there every day kind of watering and trying to keep it going. But so I'm out there a couple days ago, and I get a phone call from the LA chief pilot's office over at Legacy Airlines, and it's the chief pilot. And so it's not a call that you normally get. So I answer the call, and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he says, "Hey, First Officer Tony, I'm just thank you for taking the call. I'm just calling to notify you that on the 12th of March, you had a flight that you conducted with Captain. I was actually flying with Captain Tony as well. It was two Tonys in the cockpit." And he says, "Yeah, you flew this particular flight, and one of your passengers has tested positive for COVID-19. Now, it's probably very low risk to you and your captain because were in the cockpit, and unless you went to the cabin for any reason or interacted with passengers, it really is a minimal risk at you, especially with the procedures that we now have in place with the APU running and the PACs running at all times when people are on the aircraft." He says, "But if you do come down with any kind of symptoms, just make sure you tell your medical provider that you possibly were exposed through a flight with a passenger that has tested positive. So,
Interesting.
I kind of took me aback for a moment, but I remained calm on the phone, and I started asking a few questions like, well, were they sitting in the back of the aircraft, or were they up front? And he really didn't have much information. He had a list of phone calls to make, unfortunately. And this is kind of the new reality for management at these airlines, is they have to make these notifications, whether it's the flight department or the in-flight department is what they call the flight attendant departments in flight. And what a terrible job to have to notify these people.
Wow.
Now, fortunately for me, it was more than 14 days prior. I have not had any kind of symptoms, and I'm doing my due diligence with my family, and we're checking our temperature twice a day, and we're isolating a lot of things so that we don't bring things into the house, and we have our
so I was going to ask you,
decontamination.
when you got back from that trip, what was the reaction from your family or your wife and kids? Did they know immediately upon your arrival that you had? Well, actually, I guess you said you just got that phone call, so they didn't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Well, when this whole thing started, and the numbers started to increase exponentially overseas, I'm fortunate enough to be partnered up with somebody who is a Army veteran who has went through a lot of training in relation to this very thing while in the Army all those years ago. And she immediately started to stock up on food. We luckily have a fridge in the house, and we also have a full-size fridge in the garage, basically a second kitchen, if you would. And so we started stocking up before it even really started becoming an issue for the United States.
Yeah, we kind of did that too.
The only one thing that we didn't do is we didn't stock up on toilet paper, because
I don't think
who would have known?
I think we were the last ones. I think the first one that started that is the only one that, and then they're probably like 20 years from now going to have a garage full of toilet paper going, what should I do with all this?
I actually was curious how many people out there have storage facilities with toilet paper and hand sanitizer that they stocked up because they think that's going to be their saving grace. I don't know. How did people wipe their ass
crazy.
before toilet paper was even around,
right.
Like in the 1800s?
I mean, right? Yeah, you went out and used the garden hose if they had one, or what? A bidet.
A bidet, and that's where you should invest right there. It's a little Japanese toilet seat.
Absolutely.
That's
$20 at the Home Depot, man. They have them.
Is that how cheap it is?
I think you can get one for $20 at the Home Depot, one that just kind of plumbs into the existing plumbing of your toilet. I just helped my neighbor put one in.
Is it battery operated, and they just? Is that how it works?
It's got a little valve on the side, and you just kind of flip the valve when you need the water to go in a certain place, and
so it's mechanical.
And then you flip the valve to go the other direction. So yeah,
I might have
pretty straightforward.
I might have to invest in that.
Yeah. But you were speaking about the storage stuff, though. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I saw an article today that the FBI just found all those N95 masks that were in.
Oh, was that the guy over in Washington?
I think it was Washington. The guy had a whole stash of them, like a whole warehouse full of them, and he was hoarding them.
Didn't he steal them,
just in case he needed them? Either he stole them. I have to look for the article and get the whole story. But basically, the FBI raided his warehouse and confiscated everything because there's a worldwide shortage of this stuff. And this guy's, hey, I'm going to sell each mask. I'm not sure he's going to sell them, but it kind of sounds like he was getting ready to sit on it and then sell it whenever the time was right for him. But
if it's the same story that I read,
same thing as toilet paper.
He was trying to sell them on Craigslist, and the markup was, of course, astronomical.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah. And people like that, trying to take advantage. I mean, I can understand business sense and all, but this goes beyond, just the sanity of humankind. Why would you take advantage of people? This is a life and death situation in some cases, but yeah. So, people are going to take opportunity everywhere they can. Opportunists, Yeah, so we were
Yep.
prepared. We were well
Yep.
prepared.
I actually just looked it up. Brooklyn man arrested for hoarding masks, coughing on agents. This is in the New York Post, March 30th, 2020. So it's crazy.
Yeah, no, the one I read was a guy in Washington State stole some from a clinic and then tried to sell them on Craigslist and got busted.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and we're gonna see more of that in the near future.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but we were prepared. You know, we stocked up well, and then we were able to acquire toilet paper. Costco's now are starting to get their regular shipments. They don't last very long, so it's not like they're going to be on the shelf. But if you time your Costco run just right, you should be able to get it, especially early in the morning. Also, a note, and for those listeners out there that are Costco members, which if you're not, I highly encourage you to at least look into it. They now limit how many people can get in the building, not only in terms of how many shoppers can be in the building or let in the building at a time, they're also limiting how many members can come in per membership card. So if you think, well, I'm going to, take the family down to Costco, we're going to go do a Costco run. Well, they're only going to let 2 people in with 1 membership card. So you can't basically leave the kids at home, which you should be doing anyway, whenever possible. Yeah. So they're limiting how many members or how many people a member can bring in. So
it's another similar situation like that with one of the hospitals here in Texas. One of the and you may be friends via social media with this coworker of ours from Sandpiper Airways, but he unfortunately is battling cancer, and he has to go down to MD Anderson Hospital in Houston. And one of the posts from his wife was, brought him down there, and like usual, we check. I go into the check-in area to check him in, and they said, well, you can't hang out here. You can stay out here in the waiting room, or you can come back in a couple hours, but you're no longer allowed in here. So they're only allowing the patients to go in, and no more of the family members because of the high risk of obviously bringing in the coronavirus. So it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, both the risk to anyone bringing in the corona and also a risk to visitors to contracting it, because as the ICUs start to fill up, I mean, or people getting checked in. I know a very good friend of ours, he's the head chef for one of our local regional hospitals. And he says, they've set up the tents out front. You can't even set foot in the hospital anymore. You have to have an appointment.
No kidding.
And you have to go through the whole temperature check and go through all the questions and stuff, check the vitals, and then figure out where you're going and why you're there. And if someone's admitted, they're going solo. There are no.
It's really interesting how all these businesses are being forced to revolutionize the way they do business. And along the same lines, my daughter just had a wellness checkup the other day, and we did it all online with the doctor because obviously it's not an essential service, but it's something they said, hey, we could do this online, as long as we do take some of the vitals for them, temperature and stuff like that. So, and he's like, well, we know it's not a medical grade thermometer and blood pressure stuff, but at least it's just a ballpark of where she's at. And so it's really interesting. And we've been also doing a lot of, not really a lot, but we've saved a lot of money staying home for sure. We're not eating out as much. We're a household that's really busy. If you listen to some of the past podcasts, you've heard me mention that, we're always going to volleyball tournaments and volleyball practices with my 2 daughters. And, all that came to a screeching halt. So we're not on the road all that much. So we saved a lot of money not eating out and, making meals at home. But we have done some takeout food, and it's been pretty interesting to be able to just zip around the town with there's really no traffic because everybody's, shelter in place. Only essential businesses are allowed to be open. And pretty much everybody else is staying home.
Yeah.
So the road, the rush hour traffic that we normally experience in our town is virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
So it's been actually pretty nice from that aspect.
Yeah, nice and also not nice, because I can tell you, I've been out and about on the road, going back and forth to the airport for my trips, and I get my family out. We do, so you're allowed to go out to do your exercise. You got to stay 6 feet from anybody else. But we've been doing a lot of walks at local parks. We try to go to a different park every time. If it's crowded, we don't even get out of the car. But we do get some fresh air. We it's important for us to get out and get some fresh air, and still isolate, which we have been doing a very good job of. And we have a little bit of a technique on how we're ensuring that we don't bring anything into the house. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But out there on the road, we went for a drive. We're not leaving the car. We just went for a drive, rolled down the windows. We're out there, and we went up into the canyon. There's a dam up there and a little reservoir. We went up to just go take a look, and get some fresh air, change of scenery to help keep our sanity. And we're out there on this windy road here in Southern California, and I'm passed by about 7 souped up, lowered import cars, with the exhaust. And hey, man, it's all good.
Exhaust.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And they're speeding on a windy road, and they're passing me up like I'm standing still. And I'm like, maybe we should turn around, because what was happening was they were meeting up at the top of the ridge. And they were going to go, they're stay at home.
Yeah.
But they were really going out, and though they weren't maybe out of their vehicles, they were still doing this little, illegal loitering or cruising or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Non-essential activity.
And then I also was going to the airport for my trip the other day, early in the morning. Traffic was minimal, which was wonderful, like you mentioned. But also I was passed by 4 or 5 cars doing like 100, 104 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, but there is no cops out anywhere. So yeah. You gotta be careful, because there's less traffic and there's certain aspect of society that thinks, oh, well, that means I can zip along here and
take advantage.
Exactly. So the phone call, I got the phone call from the chief pilot, right? And I told my spouse about it, and it was kind of, oh crap, okay. So that was a little stressful for a few days, but then when we realized, okay, it's been like 14, 15, even now 16 days, and we're watching the schedule and watching it deteriorate, and my last trip sequence deteriorated so much that before I even left the house to start the trip, it ended up being completely different from what it originally was. And I know you were doing a trip also that deteriorated rapidly right in front of your eyes.
It did.
I think my trip started on Sunday. When did your trip start?
It's Sunday also.
Yeah.
Yeah. It started on Sunday. Yeah. My trip was supposed to be, let's see, actually, it's hard to even remember exactly what it was supposed to be. Actually, no, my trip did start on Sunday, but I only had one cancellation in the trip, and it was actually the second leg, which was going to be from Reno to Phoenix. So my second leg canceled, and what they ended up doing is they ended up deadheading us on an earlier flight from Reno to Phoenix. Oh. So it was only earlier by, I don't know, probably about a half hour. So we ended up pretty much flying the trip without it being broken up like your trip was. But so it started off in DFW, went to Reno to Phoenix on a deadhead, spent the night in Phoenix. And we were downtown at the Renaissance by Marriott, which is a very, very nice hotel. Right downtown Phoenix.
Like
and that's nice, right? But they're obviously every hotel is practicing social distancing, and when you check into this particular hotel, normally you would have a countertop for a front desk, and the receptionist would stand behind the front desk and check you in, and you belly up to the counter and sign in and everything. Well, this time they had, it was like 4 feet or 5 feet of desks. They put desks in front of the counter, so you can't get up close to the receptionist. Yeah. So you're standing literally 6 or 7 feet from them, and you're kind of just tossing the keys and tossing the paperwork across the desk there. Only thing available was room service to us. They did give us a nice discount for that, and they removed the room service fee, which is normally associated with room service menu items. So that was kind of nice. A burger and fries with a drink was like $13. So that's normally close to $20 for something like that out of room service. So it wasn't too bad. The next day, woke up mid-morning and went out to get some exercise and walked around and kind of get the lay of the land. And gosh, it's amazing how dead the city was. You could tell, they're practicing their social distancing and shelter-in-place orders, and there was probably, I think I maybe passed in a half-hour walk, probably passed maybe total of 10 people total in a city downtown, right around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Right. So it did kind of get a little busier during the lunch hour, but all the restaurants that were open were the only ones that did takeout or delivery. So like your Jimmy John's, your Subways, and Chipotle's and stuff like that. So the food options are there, but you have to be willing to go out and get it or have it delivered to the hotel. Yeah. So that was Phoenix day 2. We did Phoenix to Chicago, which is a 1-leg trip, and gosh, I haven't even mentioned it, but the first flight going back to the first day, DFW to Reno, I don't think we had more than 15 passengers on that one flight.
And your aircraft holds how many usually?
160, and on the most common the common configuration, the Oasis configuration, and which obviously we're not flying to max, that holds 172. So 15 passengers, that's not good. Yeah. The next day, and then when we deadheaded from Reno to Phoenix, we were a crew of 6, and we only had 5 other passengers on board.
Yeah. And so, it bodes a question, and I know this is kind of out there, and there are plenty of articles out there discussing this. So, you take a bailout, you take these grants, you take these loans as a company, as an airline, and they say, okay, as long as you don't cancel any flying, you continue to service to those cities. I mean, you don't have to have the frequency, but you do have to have the service to those cities, and you don't furlough any employees. As long as you can have those 2 actions be concurrent, then we will offer you these 0% loans, grants, and whatnot. The problem is when you're flying airplanes around with no one on board, is it cheaper to just cease the operation and not consume the fuel, the labor costs, all the contract costs? Or is it cheaper to continue the flying, the airplane's empty, and then take the bailout money or loan at 0%, which eventually, inevitably, you will have to pay back? So this is a topic that is very much liquid right now.
Very common.
Okay, and it's going through. It's going through all the execs, right now at all the airlines, trying to figure out, is it better to take? So we're very much up in the air right now as pilots, to knowing what's going on. We have no idea. And so this is a very, you raise a really good point that the planes are empty. I mean,
it's crazy. I had this conversation with one of the flight attendants on the trip, and I don't know if I'm right, and I may be wrong, but they asked me the question, why are we still flying? Why don't we just stop flying? Yeah. And that's exactly what you were saying, and I'm like, let's think about it here for a minute. Let's look at it at a different angle. Let's look at it from a point of what if our unions wanted to go on strike? Are we legally allowed to go on strike? Well, why can't we go on strike? It's probably because our airline is essential air service in some form, which receives some government grants or subsidies for something along the way. We know we transport military personnel, and we do mail, and I know we're doing moving a lot of supplies in our cargo compartment. And I had that conversation with the flight attendant. And this person was, I hate to say it, but they were a millennial. And I was like, well, we're standing up here, and yes, our primary revenue is passengers, but what you don't know, below our feet is a cargo compartment.
A lot of U.S. mail.
When I was doing the walk around,
yep,
they were loading that thing up full of mail. There is so much stuff being moved around because a lot of time now people can't hand carry it, or they can't meet face to face. So there's some form of it's being shipped around via mail, and a lot of other businesses are obviously being conducted virtually, with the FaceTimes and the Zooms and stuff like that. But when it comes back to the point of why can't we just shut the airline down, and to your point with the government, government loans, we have to maintain some kind of a schedule. We have to still service some of the cities that we service now. And I think you were about to say if we had like co-domiciles, we're allowed to operate out of maybe one of those domiciles. I'm not sure how Legacy Airlines is going to handle that, but LA, I know at least for the 7-3, they have to cover quite a few. In New York, 3 airports. If you're in Washington, I believe it's 2 or 3 airports. So that's interesting. We'll see what's going to happen from there.
Yeah. When you buy a ticket on an airline, and this has always been the case, on the back of the paper ticket, at least when paper tickets were a common thing and not some QR code on your phone, on the back of the paper ticket, it had a printed out kind of like a code of service or agreement, service agreement, something like travel agreement. I forget what it's called. I believe I spoke about this in another show. And it says, if you buy a ticket from point A to point B, and in order to get there, you have to, fly A to C, C to B, and that's how you get there. And at any point, you paid for those flights, but if something happens, the airline will do its due diligence to get you there via air, on time, on schedule. However, if they need to put you on a bus to get you from point, C to B on that last leg of that connection, they can do that and no, that does not constitute a refund because the agreement in writing says we will get you there. It doesn't necessarily have to happen via air. So
in an airplane,
right? So that could continue to be the case. We'll see how this all unravels in the future. I don't think we're gonna. We've been talking about here on the show about the rubber band effect, and this thing's gonna all kind of like bounce back real quick because people are going to see, airfares. But, this thing is such a dramatic turn on both the economy and the airlines themselves that this might take a long time to ramp back up. You had mentioned
I totally
that
agree with you.
We have more than just passengers. We also do cargo. And I remember reading an article a few days ago, and I found it. And it's from the Legacy Airlines webpage. And it reads that Legacy is utilizing its grounded passenger aircraft to move cargo between the United States and Europe, ensuring that the world's goods continue to get where they need to go. The first cargo-only flight departs from Dallas-Fort Worth International on March 20th, landing in Frankfurt, Germany on March 21st. The Boeing 777-300 will operate 2 round trips between DFW and RFA over the course of 4 days, carrying only cargo and necessary flight personnel. This is the first scheduled cargo-only flight for Legacy since 1984, when Legacy retired the last of its Boeing 747 freighters. So here we are doing the same thing we were doing in the 80s to try to keep it going, try to keep the airline afloat, keep the pilots flying, keep the aircraft in the air. And this is great.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
This shows that, up there in the executive offices, they are working diligently to try to figure out how we can maintain the revenue stream, thinking outside of the box.
My neighbor works at the headquarters, and his job directly pertains to all the stuff we're talking about. And he's the one that I told you we were building the raised flower garden for. Mm-hmm. And so while we're building this flower garden, we were talking, and he's saying, they're trying to figure out how to bring some of that U.S. mail and other cargo into the empty cabins of the airplane with having to reconfigure them. And, the challenge is also now is to there's no fire suppression system in the cabin. So that's one of the issues if one of the package, because, that's one of the issues. So, U.S. mail, you don't have to really, I guess you have to declare if it's flammable and stuff like that. It's supposed to go on ground, but, you don't really know if on the air stuff. So that was one of the things. And the other problem was, how do you strap it into the seat? And, obviously if it goes under the seat in front, that's a normal configuration. But so anyways, they're really trying to brainstorm out there and trying to just figure out how to, get every dollar of revenue that they can just to keep things going. Yeah. So I kudos to them. It's a hard job.
Hearing you, I didn't know that. And hearing you say that, I'm just kind of, I'm the type of person, I hear things and all of a sudden, my neuroconnectors start firing like crazy. It's like fireworks going on in my brain. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but why couldn't they just put one or two flight attendants that are trained with a fire extinguisher that are stationed in the back of the airplane, and they fill overhead bins with boxes of packages, and they're secured in the overhead bins? And as long as you don't exceed the limitation of the bin, which I believe is 40 pounds or something, depending on the aircraft, I guess. But so you say take an aircraft and you throw the boxes up there in overhead bins. I mean, that's a way to do it. I know that there are allotments in our standard operating procedures or SOPs that say you can have cargo strapped to a seat as long as like a cello or a big musical instrument, as long as it's secured via a seat belt, and as long as it doesn't exceed the weight of what a standard passenger is. I don't know what I think it's 185 pounds, 195,
70, 170 or something like that.
Just under 200
and that's
pounds,
something we talked about that too. Is the weight of the cargo and everything is it's all factored. It has to be factored in. They don't have a program quite yet of how to distribute, electronic weight and balance wise throughout the cabin. So there's a lot of things that have to go through hoops before it becomes a reality. But that's something they're looking at. So
So anything else happened in your last sequence you were talking about? You ended up deadheading from Reno. What happened there?
Reno to Phoenix. It was just a rescheduled deadhead from Reno to Phoenix. So that brought me into Phoenix. And we were, I think there was 5 other passengers, including the crew members. So it was a total of 11 on that.
Were they all deadheaders, or were there paying passengers as well?
Just 6 deadheaders, and then the 5 revenue passengers. And I believe the 5 revenue, 3 of them were military. Mm-hmm. And the other 2, and you could just kind of tell by the way they're, haircut and their bag and all that stuff. So, but yes, so it was very empty. They gave 3 of the crew members first class. So I was one of them, but I knew one of the guys were military, so I said, "Hey, guy, why don't you go ahead and sit up there?" Because we were still practicing the social distancing in first class too.
Sure.
So since we were able, it was just like 1 per row. So I was like, hey, this guy looks like he's never been in a first class seat before. So I was like, hey, bud, why don't you sit up there? I'll go sit in your seat. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. So
Did he
he was
shake your
pretty
hand
happy
and
for
say
that.
thank
But
you?
yeah, as I coughed and sneezed all over him.
You're like, oh. Yeah, you're anytime, buddy.
I felt bad because we don't have much of a service anymore up there because of everything. They're not serving drinks or not serving food unless you could ask for a drink, but normal service has been suspended. So he was just going to get to sit in a nice fluffy first class seat just for what is it, an hour and a half, 2 hour ride to Phoenix. So yeah.
But that's awesome.
Yeah, so we just went to Phoenix. Yeah, it was cool. I felt good doing it, and he looked like he was really appreciative of it. So, and you could tell he was bragging to his other buddies that he got the first class seat, and the other ones didn't. So,
nice. Good.
My captain didn't know I did it, so I think he would have done it too. But I just walked to the back quietly. But yeah, so went to Phoenix, and then the next day was Phoenix to Chicago. And again, that flight was. I think we had probably 15 passengers on that one. It wasn't all that, the loads weren't all that high. But yeah, 15 to Chicago. We got to Chicago at about 10 o'clock at night. And I think I sent you the picture that the terminal, there was absolutely zero people in the terminal at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And what's also strange is, I remember being on the RJs at Sandpiper. When you park, set the brake, run the checklist, you open the door, and you barely make it to greet the last 10 or 15 passengers to get off the airplane.
Right.
Well, now by the time we set the park and brake and run the checklist, turn around and open the door, they're all gone. Even the flight attendants are leaving before I'm poking my head out. So I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
The captain's
Same
like,
thing
you
here,
better hurry up and do the walk around because you're going to miss a hotel van.
Yeah. So you ended up in Chicago. You ended up staying at the hotel there in Chicago?
We did. Yeah. The hotel right at the airport. I think that's the Hilton. So basically you just walked to the hotel, got a room, and short night. I think we had about 12 hours in at the Chicago O'Hare Airport Hilton. And then the next day was Chicago to San Diego, which actually that one we had about 50 passengers.
Oh.
So we were breaking records. So 50 passengers from Chicago to San Diego. And then San Diego to Dallas, which was the last flight. That one, we only had 5. And 3 of them were non-rev. So that was a nice, light, empty airplane taking off. I think I forget the departure out of San Diego, what the name of it was, but basically, take off, you go straight ahead for about 5 miles, and you do a left-hand turn, head back to the east. So by the time we made the turn and we were beamed the airport headed east, we were already above I think 12,000 feet, which normally you're kind of close to 8 to 9,000 feet, due to the light load. I mean, due to the heavy load to the light load, we were up there around 12,000 feet, which was kind of neat to be able to skyrocket with the airplane up as fast as we could. So flew like a rocket ship.
Yep.
And get to practice some pretty relatively light landings, close to 98,000. Let's see. Forget how heavy we were on that one landing. Yeah, we were close to only about 100,000 pounds.
Wow.
On one landing. Yeah, it's nothing. So
it really is.
Our approach speed was basically what an Embraer 145 would be. We were about 130 knots, 135 knots on the approach. Which normally in a 737 we're around 150. So
short field technique on landing, right?
Really slow. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, you always kind of bang those in because you just don't know how the airplane's going to react when you start applying back pressure for the flare.
Yeah, really. Well, my trip was.
How was your trip?
It started out, of course, the reassignment. I was supposed to do LA to Vegas and then fly Vegas to Miami. A couple days before the trip, they turned the Miami leg into a deadhead on a 777. Fine. Okay. So now I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be in the back. Should I be taking precautions? Do I need to wear a mask? How are they going to seat me? Is it going to be a full flight? So I'm looking on our app that we have. Yeah, I mean these are all valid things. I mean, when you're up front in the cockpit, you're isolated. You really are. You truly are. You're not going to catch it from a passenger. If you're gonna be exposed in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be from the previous pilot or previous crew or your co-pilot, whoever the captain that you're flying with or a first officer that you're flying with in whatever scenario you are. So, I was looking at all this, and then, of course, by the time it was the day of, that flight to Miami canceled completely. So, okay, fine. Wow. So I was instead spending the night in Las Vegas. The sequence, I kind of talked about how getting to the airport was relatively quick. Normally, I would have to account for traffic and whatnot, and I didn't have to do any of that. And there was really minimal traffic. As a matter of fact, I was being passed up by speed racers all over the place. Fine. And so I get to the airport, and the hotel or the crew van from the employee lot to the airport was relatively empty, as it normally is that time of day and the evening there. And I get to the terminal, and it's like a scene from an old spaghetti western. You see the tumbleweed going across the terminal. Everything is shuttered. There's one, maybe two people at every gate. And we're normally at that time around 8 p.m. at night. LAX is like a zoo. You can't walk, and it was just weird. It was weird. It was as if it was like 3 a.m. or something. It was just weird. So okay,
it's strange.
I took a photo. I think I posted it there on the Squawk Ident Instagram page, and so I went to the crew room and took care of updating whatever I needed to update and download the flight plan and get a couple things ready, and off to the gate I went. And I think we had 7 passengers going to Las Vegas that night.
Wow.
Of which I think a few of them were non-revs. So okay, light load. Now the captain said, "Hey, why don't you the transponder says 2. So why don't you fly us out to Vegas?" And so for those of you guys out there that may not be doing it this way, when you get in the airplane, you always take turns flying. It's either the captain flies the first leg or the first officer flies the first leg, and really it's up to the captain whatever they want to do. But he'll always or she'll always ask, hey, do you want to take the first leg? You want to take us out? You want to fly inbounds, outbounds? However you guys agree to do it. And in his situation, he goes, up, the transponder is on 2. That means you take the first one. I was like, all right, whatever. That's cool. I get paid the same no matter what. So fine. So on the before departing briefing, we're on the pre-flight brief where we talk about the threats. We talk about, what we can expect in terms of taxiing out, takeoff performance, all that. Part of that takeoff performance, I had to discuss, okay, we have on the departure, the first fix is at or below 3,000 feet, and the second fix is at or below 5,000 feet. Normally, not a problem, okay, especially in a 321. Right. But I said, but today we have a very light load. Make sure I don't bust those altitudes, and I will get the autopilot on a little earlier than normal. Normally, I like to hand fly the aircraft at least to 10, sometimes to 18, even beyond, depending on the workload. If the workload's light and we're at an outstation especially and I'm flying, I love to hand fly the airplane, because what the hell did I get into this profession for in the first place if I let the autopilot do everything? So I like to hand fly, keep my skills sharp. But knowing that we were kind of light, I told him I may get that autopilot on a little sooner. The altitude wasn't a problem. We were doing really well. But once we got into our climb configuration, man, 4,000 feet a minute climb in an Airbus A321. Yeah.
It's rare, right?
Yeah. We were pointed to the sky. We were looking sharp. Like, man, this thing. Yeah. before, and for any of those that are not familiar, when you depart Los Angeles, the standard takeoff procedure is departing to the west over the ocean. And then once you gain enough altitude, they clear you either on the departure or via radar vectors, left turn back around to the east and climb up to get over the mountain ranges, over Palm Springs or the San Francisco Mountains, or north San Bernardino Mountains and whatnot. So we didn't even make it like 10 miles off coast, and they're already, all right, clear direct. Like, okay. So we're turning, and before we even got back to Los Angeles area, crossing the airport to go back northeast bound towards Las Vegas, we're already above 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
Meaning we're already accelerating. Yeah. And I'm accelerating to like the fastest we can go, like 10 knots below red line, 330 knots. I'm like, okay, let's get there. So the flight was fun. It went relatively quickly, as the LA to Vegas usually does. But we get to Vegas and the captain says like, I live here, so I'll see you later. I'll see you at the airplane tomorrow. I'll be there about 45 prior. I was like, okay, no problem. And we get on the hotel van, or the van service, and some of the flight attendants were with me. We get on the van, we go to the hotel, no big deal. Okay, normally it's on a short overnight. You get to the hotel, you have a snack. I actually grabbed a snack box from the airplane, had my little snack box, watched some Netflix, and then when I was ready, conked out for the night. Next day, show up downstairs. 3 other flight attendants were there, and when the 8 o'clock van was supposed to be there, there's no van. 8:05, still no van. So I called the van company, the service, and they're like, "Well, we don't have a van scheduled for you. The company didn't schedule one." I was like, "Well, I can understand. There's a lot of reassignments. We weren't technically supposed to be here, and they reassigned us yesterday, and so I can understand how that happened. But can you please dispatch a van, because we're already behind schedule. We were supposed to be on the 8 a.m. van, and there's 5 of us here in the lobby wanting to take the van." And they gave me kind of a little bit of a hard time. They're like, well, sure, okay, no problem, but, this is happening a lot. And I was like, yeah, I understand. So we get to Las Vegas, and now I'm deadheading to Dallas on a 787.
Oh, you didn't know?
Okay, no, I kind of understood.
Did you know about that?
I did. I found out.
Yeah, okay.
They changed it when they canceled.
Gotcha.
When they canceled that leg to Miami, the deadhead to Miami, they put me on this deadhead to Dallas to catch up with my trip. So fine.
Gotcha.
No big deal. My only flight for the day was a deadhead on a 7-8 that was booked to 20. So yeah. And what we're doing here at Legacy Airlines right now is we're making a PA that's non-standard, and it basically says that because of the COVID crisis and social distancing requirements, we will no longer be doing services on flights less than whatever it is, 4 hours, whatever. So if you need anything, ring your flight attendant call button, and we'll do our best to accommodate you. So I was in business class. Okay. There are 2 other people in business class, another deadheading flight attendant way behind me and off on one side, and a paying passenger who was a couple rows ahead of me and off to my left. And so he immediately rings his call button, and this guy had like not a care in the world. He had his paper out, and he's just on a regular flight. It's like no big deal. And he says to the flight attendant, "Hey, can I, once you get a chance, once we're airborne, whatever, you said that I have to ask for something. Can you just bring me a soda? I always have a Sprite or something. Can you bring me the Sierra Mist or whatever you guys have?" And the flight attendant leans in and goes, "We'll see." And the guy goes,
"What?"
Exactly. He goes, "Excuse me?" He goes, "I said, we'll see." He goes, "What? They just made the announcement that said that if I want anything, you're not going to do a cabin service, and to ask, and I'm asking for soda. Are you saying you're not going to give me a soda?" And he goes like, "Did I stutter? I said, we'll see."
Oh my.
And I'm sitting back here going, holy shit, what is up with this guy? What's his problem?
Why?
So, why exactly? Why give this guy an attitude? Like he's angry that he's a paying passenger on this flight. He's angry that he's working today. I mean, I don't get it.
Oh, should be thankful.
Okay.
Paying your wage.
All right. So we take off, and as soon as we're through 10, he comes out of his jump seat, goes in the galley, grabs the soda, and he hands him a soda in a cup, and he goes, "Thank you." You know, but by now that passenger already was like spread out. He had his paper, his tray table was down. It's like not a care in the world. He didn't disinfect a damn thing. I got on the airplane. I have my little Ziploc, gallon-sized Ziploc bag. I've got rubber gloves. I've got my N95 mask in there. I've got,
me too.
I got my alcohol wipes or my bleach wipes, whatever. And I'm like wiping the tray table and the armrest and I mean, I look like
absolutely.
But then I look over and the other deadheading flight attendant over there that was across me doing the same thing, and he had the gloves on too. And you know, and so we're cleaning everything I'm gonna touch. Seatbelts and all. And this guy gets on like not a care in the world, picking his nose and flicking his boogers. It's just like, you know, like whatever. He doesn't give a shit, right? So he gets his soda, and our flight attendant then walks like 3 rows behind me and sits down in an empty seat. And I shit you not, he sat there for 2.5 hours, did not get up one time.
Are you kidding?
That was it. That was he's done. He just, I'm not gonna do a damn thing. And so I thought,
not even to check on his passengers' well-being, or
well, you know, you have deadheading crew members too. You could probably walk up to a deadheading crew member and go and keep your distance still, but still say, "Hey man, do you need anything? Can I get you anything? You want a bottle of water?
Is everything good?
You want a coffee? You know, something? You know, can I get?" And no, nothing. It's like, fuck you guys. So it was really disconcerting to start, you know, day 2 of this trip. And see, is this really what are we that unhappy of having to go to work during this crisis?
Wow.
You know, so that was a bad service experience.
Yeah.
Get to DFW, and again, the airport was a ghost town. No one there. And I mean, occasional you see a state trooper, lots of state troopers meeting flights.
Yeah. Saw a lot of those when I got back from Chicago.
Yeah.
We had about 10 at our gate.
Yeah, I heard in some places they're actually driving you home or to your hotel.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You know, I think that day or maybe the day before, the state of Texas just implemented that rule. If you came in from, you know, certain cities, that you had to self-quarantine for 14 days, and you had to, you know, fill out a documentation, tell them who you are, where you're going, and what your business is, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing now, but that's when I got back from Chicago, that was very, very evident that they were enforcing that. And there were 10 troopers at my gate. And on my way out of the airport, I had to pass by 3 gates or so. Mm-hmm. And there was literally 10 at the next gate, 10 at the following gate. Yeah. And they were everywhere. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did that. I ended up with that overnight in Fort Worth, the one that's it's a long drive.
Okay.
So we got there, and of course, the hotel that we're staying at doesn't have food service, no room service, nothing.
Really?
Okay, and I had
what hotel is that?
It was a Courtyard.
I could look it up.
Courtyard, downtown Fort Worth.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had like a you know, refrigerator with like sandwiches and things like that, or microwavable food.
Yeah, pantry kind of thing.
Pantry, that's exactly it, the pantry. But, you know, we were in downtown Fort Worth, and it's like, well, I told my captain, I haven't had any breakfast or lunch, and it's kind of late lunch, early dinner time. Are you going to go and get some takeout? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go pick up some food. I said, well, I'll go with you, you know, and he had never been down to Fort Worth overnight at that hotel. So I was like, yeah, there's, you know, we can go to Risky's barbecue, or we can go to Flying Saucer. They're both open. It was recommended that we go to Flying Saucer because they were actually selling growlers, and you can take a growler back to your hotel room.
Cool.
30-hour overnight. I mean, come on, right? So we ended up at Risky's, great barbecue place. I've mentioned it before. It's a great place to go. And we got a huge, 3-meat platter, took it back to the room. Nice. And he's like, all right, man, I'm gonna eat my food and probably binge watch something on Netflix. I'm like, dude, I'm right there with you, bro. So that's what I ended up doing. The next day, we all meet up in the lobby, and it's 3 crews. So it's my captain and I, 4 of my flight attendants that we were going to fly from Dallas to San Francisco with, and another crew as well. So there's 10 of us in the lobby. and we had a van. The van did not show up on time. I think it was a 3 p.m. van. And then the van shows up, and it had 3 crew members in it already from another hotel. So we're doing the math. We're like, there's like 13 people plus the driver in this van, and it's not a big van. It's one of those Sprinter vans, right? So we're like, okay. Well, first off, social distancing goes out the window if we're sitting in each other's laps and taking every single seat in the van. Secondly, I don't even think we can do this legally because I know the DFW has a maximum of gathering of 10, if that.
Yeah.
So technically, we're kind of in a gray area. So the captain was like, well, yeah, I'm okay with it, if this is it, and I was like, well, I don't know if I am. And I asked our purser, our number 1 flight attendant, hey, are you okay with all crowding in this van? And she says, no, I really am not. But I mean, I'll do it if I have to. I'll put my mask on. But I think it's just too crowded. I said, I agree. I said, let's work on another van. So the captain spoke with the driver, asked the driver to call dispatch to dispatch another van because we were not going to have, at this point, 3, almost 4 crews in one van, and it just wasn't safe. It's fine. The van driver says, okay, I'll do that. And he drove off. So he left basically my crew there. So there's 4 flight attendants and 2 pilots. So 6 of us sitting on the curb. Mind you, we're already behind schedule. And the captain calls the desk, the dispatch desk for Legacy Airlines, right? The hotel desk. And I call the van service desk. And when the lady answers the phone, I say, yes, hello, this is Tony with Legacy Airlines. And just to let you know, we're down here at the Courtyard in downtown Fort Worth. We're flight number so-and-so. And the van showed up, but there really was no room. We were going to have to sit on each other's laps in order to all sit in that van because the van had 3 crew members already on board from another hotel and the 4 flight attendants for that second crew. And then we were the 3rd crew, and there's 6 of us. We just weren't going to fit. So we had them go. We asked them to call you. Did they call you to dispatch another van? And she says, he called me and said, you guys were a no-show, and he took off.
Huh.
And,
wow.
Ma'am, I was here. I spoke with him. There were 3 crew. No, there were no. The van was empty, and they were supposed to pick up 8 people from it. Like, well, there was 10 of us waiting for the van, and there was 3 on board. So that's 13 people in the van plus the driver, and it wasn't going to work. So no, the van was empty. So she's going back and forth with me, arguing with me. I'm totally calm. Meanwhile, my flight attendant is standing right next to me. She calls one of the flight attendants that was actually on the van that she knew. Yeah. Said, give me your van driver's name. So she gets the van driver's name. I'm like, yes, we're speaking right now through another phone line to the van driver. And he said that he told you that we weren't going to fit and to dispatch another van. And his name is so-and-so, and he's on van number so-and-so. And she goes, hold on, puts me on hold. Never came back. Never came back from hold. So here I am calling her on her shit. And another van does finally show up 20 minutes behind our scheduled pickup time. And, we were able to hop on and get on. We got to the airport on time. Everything was fine. That flight from DFW to San Francisco, we had 6 deadheading crew members plus our crew, which was another 6, 12, right? 12. And we had 4 non-revving pilots and flight attendants from other airlines trying to get on. We left with 0 passengers.
Zero revenue.
0 revenue passengers. This is what I'm talking about.
Man.
0 revenue passengers. So an Airbus A321 from DFW to San Francisco with no paying passengers. And
incredible.
Of course, it was a meal flight for us pilots. We certain flights we get meals offered to us, right? Because after so many hours, they have to give you a meal. No, they didn't load. They didn't cater the airplane. There's no meals. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. We get to San Francisco. and we have an hour sit before our next flight. We have to change crew, change airplanes, walk over to a different terminal. There was one establishment open in the entire airport. And there were maybe...
What was it?
It was one of those food grab and go places.
Okay.
So that was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Camden Yards or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yep. That's exactly it. And, so we took off San Francisco to LA again. No paying passengers. And
insane.
And so the flight attendants that flew that airplane into San Francisco were then deadheading back to Los Angeles to finish their trip. The flight attendants that we were flying from San Francisco to Los Angeles had deadheaded from Los Angeles to San Francisco in order to work that trip back. So you had this back and forth.
Unbelievable.
Total efficiency.
Yeah. And it brings us to another point in the conversation here when it comes to costs. It's costing the company a tremendous amount of money to operate these flights. And I think we talked about this letter earlier as a memo for a competitor's airline. And they say that this time last year, their operations revenue would bring in $130 million a day. This time last year. Today, they only brought in $4 million.
Boogers.
That is exactly. I mean, $4 million as opposed to $130 million. I mean, it's like, a lot of money, big problems. Little money, small problems. But that's big problems. So that's just what we're working with right now. There's almost no revenue. It costs more money to fly the airplane. It costs more money in gas to fly the airplane.
What are they bringing in 2% of what they brought in last year? Is that right? Something crazy.
That's public math, Tony. You're making me do public math. I'm not good at that. But that's about right, though.
But this is
I don't have
scary.
Enough fingers and toes to count millions out. But
this really
is
scary. And I'm looking at next month's schedule. We were talking before the show. Next month, I had a full schedule. And now it was a light schedule, mind you, but it was a full schedule. And it was 70 hours worth of pay credit for the month of April. As the bids came out late this last month, so I got my bids with 10 days left in the schedule. And so I got it, and I saw, I got a 70-hour line. Okay, well, I know most of it's going to cancel because most of it was, every single sequence touched Hawaii. So I knew at least that Hawaii leg of the sequence, whatever it was going to cancel because the company has decided to only take the 777 over to Hawaii once a day to 2 locations, Maui and Honolulu. Fine. I get pay credited, and when they cancel, I get my pay credit. So I get paid regardless if I go or not because it was awarded to me and then it was canceled, and therefore, even though I didn't fly it because it was awarded, so at least I'm going to get 70 hours a line, even if I don't fly a single hour next month.
Guaranteed. Yep.
It's not what I normally like to fly. I like to fly somewhere closer to 85 to 90 simply because that is what I can expect with my usual pay. But considering what's going on, I was very grateful. Well, as we watched the days unfold, I have 0 flying for most of the month. I have a trip that is supposed to start in a couple days. And as we are doing this podcast, I'm getting notifications that those flights have canceled. So it was potentially I won't fly until the end of April. And who knows if that's going to go. So
wow. Well, it's a good time to get some housework done, keep working on the garden.
Exactly.
More podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. And, unfortunately, this is what's we're all talking about is all this, how it's affecting our journey in aviation. And a couple things to note, and you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, is if you are out there and flying, which many of us still are flying, make sure before you push off the gate you read the NOTAMs. And
That's right.
everyone out there that's on social media has seen the photos from airports across the country that have these heavy airliners parked all over their closed runways. So
it's astonishing.
And then what if you take off and now the tower's closed and the winds are
Yeah.
reported as such, and you decide, well, we're going to land, we're going to do a visual runway, whatever, 18, and you're lined up on the runway and you're like, how come there's 30 airplanes parked on the runway? Go around. So make
exactly
sure you're,
and the towers have been closing like at a drop of a dime too. Like Vegas closed down, was it last week?
Yeah,
because they had people tested positive for the virus, and they shut the tower down, and they were closed for I think it was a couple days.
Yeah, Vegas, Midway, and then Salt Lake City with the earthquake.
Yeah, Salt Lake City had the earthquake. Yeah, so you could take off and launch to an airport and show up, and there's no control tower. Now, to general aviation folks, and a non-towered environment normally isn't such a big deal. We kind of do the same things in an airliner. The only difference is, we're setting up for our pattern, our entries, and, we're flying approaches into the airport, and we are, being vectored 20 miles away from the airport. So by the time we're making radio calls, we're pretty much a straight into the runway. Right. And, we don't know, other than what the approach controller has relayed to us, what traffic is in the area, what traffic is using what runways and stuff. And, it takes a little while for us to see that stuff as we get closer to the airport. So anyway, it's a dangerous thing. But the NOTAMs, safety alert for operators, is something that was released by the U.S. Department of Transportation the other day. And it basically covers exactly what Tony was talking about. Make sure you have a good approach briefing into the airport. Make sure you're covering all the NOTAMs. Let's see, what else does it say? Proactive during all operations due to potential unexpected circumstances resulting from non-standard operations. Should be alert to instrument landing system presentations, fluctuations, or inaccuracies due to disturbances in ILS beams, because the aircraft being parked close proximity to the instrument to the antennas that would be used for the instrument landing system on the runways. With normal ground flow disrupted, flight crews should consider the entire airport to be a hot spot. So now you got to draw a big, huge magenta ring around the whole thing, around the whole airport diagram, and say, hey, this whole airport is a hot spot. And let's see, last but not least on here, all pilots should exercise particular care during night or reduced visibility conditions, which goes without saying. So, yeah.
This is a safety alert for operators, or SAFO. Number 20005 that you mentioned, and that was issued on the 26th of March. Crazy how you see all these pictures of 75, 76s, 777s, all parked on taxiways and runways. I mean, have you ever seen anything like this, Rob?
I have never ever seen anything like that. The only, I guess I should say, I shouldn't say never. I've never seen it in an airline environment. Because, when we were flying GA around, and you went to, let's say, Marana, Pinal Air Park, but it was kind of like you knew that was going to be there, because that was where they, took airplanes apart, regeneration yard. Graveyard, and you fly into Goodyear in Arizona, and they had something like that there too. But to see all these airplanes that were literally just yesterday flying revenue passengers, flying brand new airplanes. I hear they're actually parking a lot of the brand new Neos, Airbuses too. I guess they're probably just saving the time on them in the cycles. I'm not 100% sure why, but it just makes sense. But yeah, just all these brand new airplanes, heavies, Maxes, 737s. I know they're parking a lot of the older legacy airlines, what they call the classic 737 ones. It's really, really weird. 190s all in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They're all at one runway. air. It's strange. Are they parking the A330s too? I'm not. Well, I mean, those are the wide bodies, obviously,
Yeah,
but
I
I
believe
haven't really heard much
they
about
are.
those.
Yeah.
But
And the
yeah, so
airlines
yeah,
now are
it's
taking
weird.
these temporary leave of absences. I know Delta, United,
Hmm.
American have these programs in place starting as early as April 1st, which just yesterday.
Right.
They had these early out options. I know Legacy Airlines has very similar options, and where it's a bunch of pilots took it for these early
Yeah.
outs, over 600 pilots. And basically, if you were 62 years or older at Legacy Airlines and also at one of our sister companies as well, if you are 62 or over, you can take an early out and they'll pay you 50 hours of pay credit per month until your 65th birthday. Now, let's think
Right.
about that for just a moment. You're a wide body captain. You're making what? Just flying your regular schedule, close to 300 to 1,000 a year, uh, approximately.
Yeah.
Flying
Approximately,
12,
maybe
13
more.
days a
Yeah.
month.
Give or take.
And
Yep.
you're going to retire, but is this thing going to come back in 3 years? We were saying it was going to be months in previous episodes here of the podcast. We were really hoping that this was going to be a relatively quick thing, and I think we were projecting that it was going to be only a few months, 90 days, maybe even 120 days, and we'd be back to a regular schedule.
Right.
This has definitely turned into something completely different. So those
Yes.
pilots that took the early out retirement get paid 50 hours of pay credit for the remainder of what they would have flown. So, I mean, that's
Right.
not bad. That's what, 60, little more than 60% pay to stay at home.
That's yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I kind of wonder what their actually line values really are. I guess it is. The minimum is, I guess, still 72 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you figure those guys probably only really do,
Yeah,
50, 60
long haul
hours.
flights. Yeah, they fly less frequently, but they do like
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, even 12-hour flights sometimes. So
Yeah.
So
But
I
still,
mean,
yeah, you're right. That's a pretty good gig. It's a pretty good deal.
yeah,
Right
and
there
now
for
they're offered
short timers.
short-term leave of absence here, 30,
That's right.
60, 90 days
Yep.
short-term leave of absence. And I know there's been a lot of back
That's
and
right.
forth in the last 48 hours about that, about the company. Is it going to do it? Is it not going to do it? Did they miscalculate what happened? But now it looks like they're doing it. And did they not just offer something else, another buyout?
I think they did, but I'm not sure if it pertains to pilots. If it does, I missed it. But I know that they're offering other, I guess we call them team members, early outs and leave of absences.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do know that the short-term leave of absences are being offered to mainly the wide body and the 190 guys. That's what they were supposed to do, and they weren't sure, like you said, if they were going to offer them to the 737 or the Airbus guys. And it looks like they actually ended up doing that eventually. So there was a lot of hesitation, on the company's part in terms of how they were going to award these things, because things were changing, literally by the minute in the negotiations, as the company tried to figure out exactly how they were going to draw down the operation, and were they going to still seek some of the government subsidized funding and stuff like that. So they really want to make sure that our team members are covered as far as pay, and they wanted to make sure that they had the right number of people from each group, because they don't want to leave anyone short or too fat, so to speak, as far as staffing.
Yeah.
That way they have enough people to operate the airline according to their whatever they're trying to plan for, which is obviously an 80 to 90% reduction in the schedule, and still operate within the guidelines of the government backed loan stuff. So yeah, right. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
So much uncertainty that is going on right now. And, a lot of people are speculating that we could be looking at some really drastic moves with how airlines operate in this current market. According to Investors Business Daily, in an article written on the 31st of March by Bill Peters entitled "Airlines Could Take This Drastic Move as Demand Plummets." And he writes that with jet cabins nearly empty due to the coronavirus pandemic, the U.S. Transportation Department on Tuesday said that airlines that receive assistance from the new stimulus bill would be allowed to consolidate some flights into a single airport. Airline stocks ended mixed. The department made the remarks in an order issued Tuesday proposing how to put in place the requirements for that aid. The department said that it had determined that in cases where multiple airports serve the same point, carriers would not need to maintain service to all such airports, but would be able to consolidate operations at a single airport serving the point. The agency is accepting comments on the proposal. President Donald Trump last week signed a $2 trillion economic stimulus package into law, an effort to cushion the blow the coronavirus has had on the economy as more people stay home. Now, the bill contains $50 billion in cash grants and loans to passenger airlines, but airlines that get that money can't make pay cuts, reduce benefits, or furlough employees involuntarily through September. Those carriers must also keep flying to some destinations. So, in order to get the money, you got to keep the service. And as you were mentioning earlier in the podcast, you could consolidate, like in the New York market, for example. So instead of flying into New Jersey, LaGuardia, and JFK, you can consolidate and say, okay, well, we're going to have that flight that goes to, Atlanta, but it's going to go through JFK. So if you want to go to Atlanta, you got to go to JFK Airport. So
that's right.
That is allowed. However, you still have to operate into most of the airports that you're going to in order to get that stimulus package. And that is the big question. Is it worth it? Is it worth it for airline execs economically to keep operating airplanes when there aren't any people on board?
And you kind of wonder whenever they come out with their projections on how much money it would take to operate the company in a worst case scenario, if that involved drawing down all the flying and removing some of those cities and hubs that we operate out of, or did they plan on getting from the details you read in this article, was that part of their plan also? So I'm kind of wondering, was their plan with all the short-term leave of absences and the permanent leave of absences and all the flight cancellations, which all happened pretty much right before this grant and all the details of the bailout were released, if the airlines were expecting that or if they weren't expecting that to be part of the agreement. So it's be interesting to see, what goes forward from there.
Right.
As they find out the details of it.
And I think that, this is really going to last a long time. As a matter of fact, in this article from Investors Business Daily, there's an analyst named Helene Becker, and she put in some of her research for a company that she works for, Cohen Research Company, that last week she said that airlines might not get back to normal until the year 2022 or 2023. And that's huge.
Scary.
That's amazing. That, we had this 5-year, for pilots at least, we had this 5-year hump in the road when the FAA changed mandatory retirement date from 60 to 65. So everybody was like, I just froze into my current position for 5 years. I'm not moving up. I'm not moving forward. For 5 years, I just got to sit pretty. And before that, of course, we had 9/11 and how the economic downturn and the airline downturn of 9/11 that took many, many years to recover from. But it was a recovery. It happened. it deteriorated, and then almost within months, people got back to flying. This is different. This cannot be compared to that.
Yeah, this is totally different.
This is a absolute halt in society. And to have the airlines come back to be lucrative in terms of job progression and the journey of the aviator, this is going to take a long time to recover from, because
absolutely,
we've created a nation of germaphobes. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Maybe that's a good thing. But we really have created a nation of people that it's going to take a lot until they have some absolute, okay, here's a vaccine, done, you get this shot, you're never, like, okay, we've got a shot for so many things. We get all these vaccinations as we're growing up, and then through childhood we get these vaccinations, and then you don't have to worry about it until that happens, if that happens at all, because this is an RNA-based flu. So it could modify, it could change, it could, until that happens, really, we're up in the air. And we as aviators are going, oh, well, okay, this is a big cut in April, and, maybe in May it'll get a little better, and maybe in June. Well, United CEO Oscar Munoz and President Scott Kirby, in a letter to employees after the stimulus cleared Congress, said that the carrier's flight schedules for the next month had been cut by more than 60%. The carrier said it was planning even more severe cuts in May and in June. And based on how doctors expect the virus to spread and how economists expect the global economy to react, we expect demand to remain suppressed for months after that, possibly into next year, the executive said in a letter.
Wow.
So the execs over at United are kind of agreeing with some of the analysts' notes with this may not come back for a few years.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. I obviously I don't know I have no clue where it's going to go, but I got to kind of agree with them. This is basically it's industry wide, that for one, and we talked about it on previous episodes. That there have been a couple of regionals that had gone out of business. I think that we're probably going to see another one. If it's not a regional, and maybe a major, have some serious financial problems coming up here. Obviously, we're having serious financial problems of this. Every airline is. So when it comes to the virus financially, from the airline, which is where I'm really afraid of too, is that look at the amount of money that we're already in debt at our airline with, all the expansion we were doing, new airplanes, new headquarters, and now, and I can't remember what the dollar price tag was on that thing, but I think it was close to like $80 billion, maybe even more than that. And now we're taking this new loan from the government, which adds on another 20 something million, or was I wrong on that? Maybe 12. I forget what exact number it was. But you look at it, from a, revenue point of view. Yeah, we make that many billions of dollars a year, but it's still not enough to pay it off. So it worries me how this is going to go, financially. The airline, if we do, in fact, I think we're going to recover from it. I think, these guys up in the headquarters are a lot smarter than I am. Obviously, they have a lot more experience at this, and you got to hand it to the team up there. That the president and the CEO, they've been through this kind of stuff already with all the airlines they managed before. So, I got to put my faith in them. I don't know what else to do other than just, show up to work, and hopefully, I could fly an airplane full of people one day again.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen because we're a society that travels. We're a society that needs to be mobile. We've been mobile from the dawn of human existence, and we're going to get back to that. We're going to get back to aviation. We're going to get back to a lucrative career that being an airline pilot is. And the uncertainty that surrounds our current situation is really the major issue. And the number one thing is to make sure that you have positivity in your life, that you realize that you're going to get over this. The stay-at-home technique of helping to prevent the spread of this virus, where I think when the numbers start to finally come in and we start to get the facts and the figures, and we're going to see a lot of people I think are asymptomatic. And that's my concern, is that I contract something, I become asymptomatic, and then I spread it to my family. And, you know, if they have complications, then I would feel responsible for that. So though I'm taking, and I'm sure you're taking, and most of the listeners out there are taking all the precautions in the world, but because this is potentially an asymptomatic spread through communal spread, and you can have it for up to 12 or 14 days or however long it is. I've heard numbers up to 24 days. I've heard the average is 4 days. I mean, who knows how long from when you have it to where it's spread. It's a highly contagious thing. Wearing the mask in public, though in the past we've said, and the CDC has said, and the World Health Organization has said, as a general rule, the public, unless you're in contact with someone or taking care of someone that has it, you really don't need to be wearing a mask. Now the CDC is starting going the other way, saying, okay, probably a good idea to wear something, you know, homemade masks are great. And the reason behind it is they need to get those N95 masks to the frontline workers, the healthcare providers. They need it because they're in it.
Yeah.
They're at the hospitals. They're in the trenches. We are walking to the grocery store or going to the grocery store. We're keeping our distance, wearing a homemade mask or a surgical mask, a paper mask. Fine. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that.
Yep.
And that's what we've been doing too. And I've got friends that are making masks at home, and we've been talking about making masks and distributing them to people that we know are nurses and doctors and things like that. But we all are kind of starting to realize that pretty much, I think most of us know someone that has it at this point in America.
Yeah.
And that's really when it really starts to hit home. Because when you know someone that has it, it's a game changer. And recently in the news and through the company, we've been getting notifications that some of our fellow employees have come down with it. Not only that, but they've also succumbed to the fact that this is a deadly virus, and we've lost a few employees. Now,
unfortunately.
Very unfortunately. Now, in an article entitled from our sister company at American Airlines, we lost a Chicago O'Hare gate agent very recently to COVID-19. It's an article by Gary Leff from viewfromthewing.com. And he wrote that last week, American Airlines lost a flight attendant to COVID-19. She was in a demographic with greater risk and reportedly had prior health conditions that complicated her situation. It was really sad to see. Given the number of flight attendants, it's inevitable that some will get sick from this virus. Since there are a large number of airline employees, about 1/4% of all the people in the country. 1/4% of all the people in the country are airline employees. A few hundred would be likely to get the virus, and some of those might die even without continuing to be exposed to the people through their jobs. And we've already seen at least 61 TSA agents who have tested positive. Wow. It's especially sad to see when symptoms are severe and where we lose someone. That's ultimately why we're all social distancing. Although it's not just to protect people over 70. In fact, America's wholly owned regional subsidiary, Envoy Air, which before the U.S. Airways merger was just called American Eagle, lost a 51-year-old Chicago O'Hare gate agent recently. Very, very sad. The article goes on, gives the name of the person, how they tested positive, and I didn't know the individual.
No, neither
but
did I.
They worked at our sister company and our sister company back at the regional days. But it's sad, and we've been kind of talking a little bit while out on the flight line. Hey, did you hear this person came down with it or whatnot? And it's starting to hit home.
Yep. It's serious, very serious. And it drives me nuts when there's people out there that are not taking it seriously. You know what I mean?
In the past 48 hours, I saw a few articles that just blew my mind. A woman was arrested for intentionally sneezing and coughing on $34,000 worth of produce at a grocery store.
Are you kidding me?
She went in there and it was a joke. Intentionally coughed and sneezed on all the produce. They saw her. They arrested her. She went to jail. But they had to throw everything away and sanitize the entire store. $34,000 worth of groceries, which means,
wow,
Nana and Pop that shop at that grocery store couldn't get their veggies for at least 24, 48 hours. And they had to risk going to the store, finding out that, well, the shelves are empty because some knucklehead decided, oh, I'm just joking.
To play a joke. Yeah. Idiot.
Absolutely.
Moron. Yep. Yeah, it's sad, man. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, we had when Texas, our area, our county went to a mandatory shelter-in-place order last week, and only essential businesses and employees are allowed to, go back and forth to their business, and then of course you're allowed to go out and get food and supplies and stuff like that. Well, I live in one of those planned communities, and we have a couple parks, playground, swing sets, stuff for kids to play over, and basketball court. And they were all out there on the swing sets, swinging around, jumping around like it was a normal day. Basketball court, 12 kids or so out there, shirts off, getting sweaty,
playing a little ball.
Playing. And I'm thinking, oh man, this, their immune system is probably a lot higher than everybody else. And just like you said, be asymptomatic or just be the carrier of the virus and not show any symptoms. But you can hand it off to somebody else, or, it may not be thinking very clearly, or just don't care and go say hi to grandma and grandpa, and all of a sudden they'll get it, or they'll pass, it's just drives me nuts.
So what do you do? What do you do? Would you go up to them and be like,
right?
I mean, and they're just gonna like flip you off and cuss at you and tell you that you're freaking mind your own business.
Somebody did actually tell the police department, and they increased the patrols in the area. And what eventually the homeowners association did was they actually put the police line do not cross tape around the playground and everything, and they put up big signs and playground is closed. Like Denton's order or whatever. So, I guess that had to be done. But there's been a noticeable increased activity level outside the house here on the walkways and the jogging paths. So a lot more people getting out with their family, and a lot more people spending time with their family. And it's actually been nice for us too, because we've our kids are doing homework now, or doing school via the iPads, and they get assignments from their teacher every morning, and basically it takes them about 2 hours or so to get through everything. But for the rest of the day, we're just hanging out, and we've created our own little policy of no electronics during the daytime while we're together.
That's great.
So it's been kind of nice. So we've been able to kind of reconnect because, our lives are so busy with work and them playing volleyball and stuff like that. So it's been so fast paced, and now everything just slows down. And we've been playing a lot of board games. Monopoly is one of them. And proud to say I've won one of 4 games.
Hey, they let you win, huh? They let you win one?
Yeah, they let me win. It's pretty fun. And actually, my youngest daughter really cleaned house on this last game. I mean, she was able to get a monopoly on every property, railroad. She had over, I think, $9,000 in cash in her bank. I think she had more money than the bank had. and me, on the other hand, I kind of felt like some of the major air carriers, just hemorrhaging cash every time I landed on one of her hotels. So, but anything, it's brought us closer together. We've been doing a lot of FaceTime, and I don't know if you ever heard of this new app here. My mother introduced this one to me. It's called House Party, and it's very similar to like Zoom or Skype, but you could do it on your phone, and you can use any type of platform that you have, whether it be a Android or iPhone, and it works pretty good. The quality is really good. So House Party is the name of the app. Download it from your app store, wherever you can get it. Give it a try. It works pretty good.
Yeah. Speaking of Zoom, I recently read an article indicating that you should not use Zoom. And the reason is that a lot of people, a lot of businesses that are doing their work from home, having their meetings via a Zoom conference call, and suddenly they'll be bombarded with pornographic images, or people that were not invited to the chat come in and have profanity and related rants. And so they're saying it's not as secure as you would think. And if you're talking business and you're talking about company stats and whatnot, you really want to be careful. They said that there are other platforms that are not as risky to use, so a little more secure, like Skype and some of the other pay-to-use teleconferencing sites. So be cognizant about that out there.
Be cautious, yeah.
Yeah. Back in episode 34, when we were talking to Luca, you and Roger and I sat down and had a really great conversation with him. And Luca was talking about how over in the UK and in Europe, they were suspending the requirement to renew your medical if your medical was expiring. And we recently received the same thing, where if your medical is expiring as of April 1st, you are granted an extension from the FAA without the requirement to achieve a renewal of your FAA medical. And that's good until, I believe, was it August 1st? Do you remember?
Let's see. It says validation period of that medical until June 30th, 2020. So basically, I got it here. It says here, FAA has issued guidance on FAA medical certificate expiring between March 31st and May 31st of 2020. The FAA has determined that pilots may operate beyond the validity. Did I say that right? Validity? Is that a real word? Validity, thank you, period for the medical certificate during the effective period of this accommodation without creating a risk to aviation safety. Therefore, the FAA will not enforce expiration dates for FAA medical certificates until June 30th of 2020, meaning that pilots who held a valid medical certificate through March 31st, 2020 may continue to operate beyond the say it again. What's that word, Tony?
Validity or valid date?
Validity period of that medical until June 30th of 2020. So that's the magic number. This does not apply to pilots whose medical certificate expired or was revoked prior to March 31st, 2020. The affected FAA medical certificate validity dates are extended in pilot records.
Say it with us.
Boom.
Validity.
Validity.
You said it.
Oh, that's funny.
Thank you for reading that. That's good news. a lot of us are afraid, like, my family, we were talking about it, like none of us can get sick right now because I'm not walking into an urgent care to save my life. I'll be on my deathbed before I walk into an urgent care or hospital facility. If I don't have to be there, I'm not going to be there. As a matter of fact, I believe that my orthodontics, I have a brace. I'm an adult with braces. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. And, I have these beautiful, nice straight teeth now, and my braces were going to come off any day. And I had an appointment, and I was like really excited because I was like, all right, I've been really good and, using the rubber bands, and my teeth are straight. And they were like, hey, you're getting close. And the last couple appointments, and I was expecting to have them removed here about a week ago. Wow. And of course the office has closed now indefinitely.
Only emergencies.
And even then they're like, go to the emergency room and call the doctor if there's an emergency. But other than
we got the same call and the same email from our orthodontist and our dentist too.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with the same thing. Our kids, my oldest daughter's braces are supposed to come off, I think, this month, and we're gonna have to push it back. So she's just like,
yeah,
So,
but hey, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have somebody's hands in my mouth anyway. Yeah. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, and the future is very intimidating. But as an aviator, I honestly, throughout this podcast, as we continue to talk in the future, I could be talking to you from a furlough. I don't know. That is very uncertain. It's very possible.
I feel the same way. I could be in the same boat. Yeah.
If they cut the industry down even 50%, Legacy is 15,000 plus. So that's 7,500 pilots out on the street.
Yeah.
Like that. And luckily, as of right now, none of that can be anticipated until August. And if they can do enough of this shuffling of the cards and thinking outside the box and operating more cargo flights and putting wide bodies on domestic flights and, getting enough people to do their short-term leaves of absence and doing the early outs and doing the early retirement buyouts. If they can get enough people to cooperate, we're going to shrink enough to maintain an operating airline and not have to involuntarily furlough people. But as we've discussed earlier, some of our fellow pilots at some of these other smaller carriers are not as fortunate as us. Yesterday marked the last day that Trans-States Airlines was operating in the U.S. The remote or regional terminal at Los Angeles will be shuttered on the 7th of April because that's the last day that Compass will operate for our sister carrier. And it's pretty sad to see all these guys on the street, with how promising the industry was, how promising everyone's future projections were. This is bad.
Yeah. It's bad. It's bad. I think we'll get through it, but it's bad. It's bad. Unfortunately, I think the jobless claims went up, skyrocketed, this month, obviously, unemployment. Unfortunately, some of our family, airline crew members joined those ranks, but this is a tough one, man. We got to just keep plugging along, and hopefully we regain some kind of normalcy. And probably the only way to do that is just listen to the CDC and let's play our part, stay inside, practice social distancing. And if you do have to go out, just, make sure you make it a quick one, wash your hands, 20 seconds, sanitizers and all that stuff. And let's try to get this thing past us. So
Absolutely.
we can return back to whatever normal was.
Yeah. And if you have the knowledge and you can make, YouTube has become kind of a saving grace because between, educational videos about how to make proper mask using vacuum cleaner bags. I mean, this is some great stuff.
Amazing.
You know, and hey, get the family involved. Let's all make a mask. You cut this shape out, I'll cut this shape out, you know, so and so will sew this and you know, make 10, 20, 50 masks. And if they're good quality masks and you can be proud of them, you know, somebody who's a nurse or a doctor or a pharmacist or somebody in the medical profession or an EMT, yes, nothing replaces an N95 mask. However, if they're in short supply, something's better than nothing. And if you can make a kick-ass, you know, face mask at home, even for you or your family or your friends and your neighbors, and I mean, by all means. And,
anywhere you can help out.
And don't forget the elderly. I mean, even if it's just a phone call or a FaceTime or Skype, I'm calling the family at least every other day. Where before it was like, once every couple of weeks, hey, how you doing? How's mom? How's dad? Whatever. How's the uncle and aunts and cousins and stuff? But now that's increased frequently, and friends as well.
Yeah,
you know, reach out to your friends, reach out to your fellow pilots, and especially your flight crew, because every airline has some kind of program. EAP is available in the Employee Assistance Program. If you've never heard of EAP, I highly encourage you to check out your company's website, because I guarantee you there's a phone number that has resources available. You're feeling stressed out. You're just, I mean, first off, turn off the damn TV. turn off the news,
and
whatever.
Get off the social media.
Get off the social media. I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's plenty of documentaries. There's PBS, there's Nova, there's cooking shows where they talk about sweaty balls. I mean, there's so much out there, you know, comedy, a lot of comedy right now going on. As a matter of fact, tonight we're going to watch a comedy.
If you go to like a Cajun restaurant, they have dirty balls, but go ahead.
Oh, anyway. Dirty balls. So, I mean, there's plenty of out there. I got to admit, Rob, I've introduced my daughter. She's 14 years old, and I've introduced her to a TV show, a sitcom that was popular back in the day. And this is what we're doing. You know, she's homeschooled. So this has been a great thing for us, because she really has not lost a step in her education, and she's still continuing to do the homeschooling. We're doing some extracurricular programs online through virtual media and whatnot. And so she's really diving into this, and kind of hasn't really affected her like some of her friends. And she's constantly, every day she gets 30 minutes on the phone with her friends, and they do a group text, group chat, group FaceTime call, whatever. And, through this, in the evenings, we kind of watch, we have like a family night. Of course, we do the dinner together, and you know, we do projects together. We work in the yard together. We go to the park and walk around the park together. But I introduced her to a TV show called The Office. Now, the wife doesn't watch because she hates that show. She can't stand that show, right? But that's fine. That's daddy-daughter time, right? So my wife will go and do her thing, go read or whatever, and then we'll watch about 30 to an hour, you know, a couple episodes of The Office, and she's cracking up, laughing, you know, just the idiocy of all the characters, you know, and you know,
that's funny.
But watching it now, it's not as funny as it used to be. So, you know, you had any suggestions for me to watch with my 14-year-old? Shows that are mildly appropriate and mildly inappropriate? I mean, I'm all for it. You can DM me, send us feedback here on the Squawk Ident or www.aviatortony.com. You can send me messages for Rob. I'll get it to Rob. We're working on that. So, yeah, we just got to keep the family spirit going, and you know,
definitely
don't let this time go by and not be able to say I shared this experience with my family, and we're all the better for it.
Yes, exactly. Take advantage of it. Yep, for sure.
And I saw you were doing something in your front driveway that you built a net.
Yes.
And what were you playing? What was that game?
Well, so I'm a big pickleball player. I used to play professional racquetball, and when I put down the racquetball racket, I started playing. A friend of mine introduced me to pickleball, and I started playing pickleball. Pickleball, if you don't know what it is, look it up on YouTube.
No idea.
It is an awesome sport. It's a cross between tennis, table tennis, badminton, racquetball. It's got kind of everything kind of combined into one sport. And it is fun for everyone. It is a blast. It is, look it up. It is the fastest growing sport in the country.
Really?
Anyway,
Pickleball.
I'm serious. Yep. Look it up. Pickleball. Yep. It's amazing. It's so much fun. I could play for hours and hours and hours and not get tired. So I, because of the current situation, everybody's shelter in place. I decided, and I don't have a pickleball net. And you could actually buy pickleball nets pretty cheap, but I just never had a reason to buy one. I decided that, hey, I think I could, make a makeshift pickleball court in my driveway. It's not the full dimensions of a pickleball court, but I had some materials laying around in the garage that I could kind of put together that make a net and the posts, and then we just marked out some lines with tape. And I invited my wife and my kids outside, and we've been playing pickleball out there every day since we built it. I mean, literally, we played for 2 hours today, pickleball. So it was great, man. And the kids just like, hey, let's go outside and play pickleball. So I'm like, okay, So it's a lot of fun. It's a great workout, and the paddles and the balls are relatively cheap. So, and every state has an ambassador, and I forget the name of the organization. It's like
the International Federation of Pickleball. I just looked it up.
There you go.
So pickleball is a paddleball sport that combines elements of tennis, badminton, and table tennis. 2 or 4 players use solid paddles made of wood or composite materials to hit a perforated polymer ball with 26 to 40 round holes over a net. Pickleball or pickleball paddle is the equipment that you'll need in a net. It was first played in the year 1965 in Bainbridge Island, Washington. Its highest governing body is the International Federation of Pickleball. It is a mixed gender, singles or doubles, and mixed doubles.
Yep.
And yeah, that's it, man. And it's
and if you read a little more into it, why is the sport named pickleball? Well, the inventor of the sport had a dog. His name was Pickles, and while he was trying to invent the game and come up with the name of the game, the dog kept going to get the ball. So he'd say, hey, pickleball. And he'd say pickleball. And the dog named Pickles would bring the ball back to him. And it dawned on him one day, and he said, hey, that's what we're going to name the sport, pickleball.
He named it Pickleball after his Cocker Spaniel. Awesome story. No, man. Now you've got me hooked. I'm going to have to look
check
into
it
this.
out. So usapa.org is the website. And when you go to the website, in the search area, there's one area that says places to play, and another one that says ambassadors. So places to play is obviously, where can I play pickleball? And in the ambassadors area, you can find somebody who is kind of organizes pickleball in your area, and they can help you with, where and when to go play. So it's really kind of a nice way to get introduced to the pickleball community. And I gotta warn you, it is addicting. Once you start, you can't stop. So be careful. I was just looking on Amazon real quick. You can buy just beginners pickleball paddles. You can buy 4 of them with 4 balls for $42. So really cheap to get into. Nets cost a little more, but California is a big hot spot for pickleball. I don't know how this pertains to aviation, but
you just learned me something, brother. I had no idea.
I travel around with my pickleball paddle whenever I know I'm going to be going to a hot spot of pickleball. Phoenix is a big one. A lot of buddies in Phoenix that play pickleball. So
yeah. Well, we normally lately, before this whole thing happened, we have these food marketplaces have been popping up all over the country. It started out over in Orange County, and they had a place there in Anaheim that was the Art Depot, and it was an old citrus warehouse where they would package the oranges for distribution. And then, that got sold off back in the 60s, and an artist community bought it, and it became like the Art Depot, and that's where you would go and have artistic viewings and showings. It's kind of like a gallery of sorts where all the local artists would go, and that was popular throughout the 90s, and then it closed down and remained empty for a while, and then it became this food depot or whatever it is, and it's a warehouse, 2 stories. It's like an indoor mall with no stores. It's only a food court, basically. So it's all like local. Instead of food trucks, they're permanent fixtures, and you can get everything from, frozen yogurt to hot wings to tampon to whatever, and
whatever you need.
And it's a really cool place to hang out. So you can, meet up with your friends. You could socialize, and all the tables are kind of in the middle and surrounding. And so they're not sit-down restaurants. They're all to-go places. Well, this was great. And we used to go there at least once a month, and we'd go with another family, or, with the kids would get together and we would go down there. And they opened one up by our house. And it's a wonderful place with room for expansion. And they have big screen TVs. They have an area with sofas that you can kind of like have a little party or a little gathering. They have gourmet coffees. I mean, come on, forget about it, right? They got chicken wings. Well, they also had 2 table tennis courts.
Oh, yeah.
With the paddles and everything. And it's free. You just go and you sit there and play table tennis with your kids after having a meal and a couple fancy coffees or whatever.
Coffees.
Yeah, and some boba or whatever. And so we would go and, I hadn't played table tennis in years, and teaching our daughter how to play table tennis, and now she gets competitive, and now mom gets into it, and next thing you know, we're doing couples table tennis and laughing, giggling, sweating, talk about spreading the virus. I mean, obviously all that is now shut down and closed and stuff, but we were talking the other day about, I wonder how much it would cost if we can find a table tennis outfit or a table and put it in the garage and, just have some fun while we're here in isolation, So
you remind me of a place in Kansas City. It's called Chicken and Pickle. And basically it's like a chicken style, fried chicken restaurant. But it's built around pickleball courts. So you go there, you eat fried chicken and you play pickleball. It's called Chicken and Pickle. It's one of the popular places in Kansas City, and I think they're building a couple more around the country. There's one popping up here somewhere in Texas that I just read, but yeah, it's awesome.
Well, for all of you out there that are, in isolation, listening to podcasts or, downloading Facebook, group chats and videos and whatever you're doing, Netflix binge watching, I got to be honest. So I get to Dallas, right? And so I went out, as I mentioned earlier. The captain and I went, grabbed a bunch of food, went back to the hotel room.
Growler,
Yeah. I actually didn't get the growler. I actually just grabbed a couple of beers, and, some Texas Lone Star beers. Cool. Like, fine, it's whatever. And
get some Shiner Box.
So I'm sitting there, and the TV at the hotel has the Netflix, on the TV.
Oh, yeah,
so
it's a Marriott.
Yeah, you can log on and watch your Netflix. Well, Ozark season 3 just came out.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how that works,
Started
right?
watching it myself.
I watched the entire season.
Get out.
10 hours
Holy
straight.
mackerel.
I took breaks I just took breaks to breathe and make a phone call, and then 10 hours. I don't think I went to sleep till like 2 a.m. Mind you, I had all day I slept in. It was beautiful. I slept in, not a care in the world. The air conditioner worked, and nobody bothered me. I was in total isolation. So, and the streets were quiet.
That's funny.
Nobody was on the street. There's no construction going on. Wake me up with jackhammers. Right. There were no maids going housekeeping.
Nice. Right. Yeah, that's weird too. That wasn't happening. Yeah.
So,
I got to episode 4 on Ozark. So on season 3. So when I was in Phoenix. So that's something that I plan on attacking probably tomorrow.
Yep. I'm not going to say a word. It wasn't new. Like, when a season is new, you're like, oh wow, great. This is awesome. It's all new. So it was a lot of plot, but it did not disappoint. I'll tell you that much.
I think I got to the point where they actually bought that casino.
No, the second casino
on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second casino.
It can be relatively bloody and emotionally draining. Yeah. I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't blink.
Yeah, that's a great series, Ozark. It's good. I like it.
Yep.
Well,
we've chatted enough, and hopefully we're helping our audience get through this crisis in aviation. Yeah. And just to be absolutely clear, there's a lot of uncertainty ahead. Who knows what's going to happen with our industry? Who knows what's going to happen with our economy? Who knows what's going to happen with our government? And who knows what's going to happen with the world? But we do know this. We're still here. We have each other, and we're going to get through this. And we're going to put our family first. We're going to put our personal environments first, which are our home, our family, our neighborhood, our network. And most importantly, reach out to those that maybe lost their job. Reach out to those that might need help. Now's the time to not collapse in mayhem and pandemonium. Now's the time to reach across to those that need help and say, I got you. So
yeah, I'm here for you, man.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So thanks for listening, everyone. And, hopefully our future shows will bring you some kind of relief and solace to the fact that we're still out here. We're plugging away. We're doing our best. We're doing our jobs. We're maintaining our professionalism. And we're operating in as much of a safety net as we possibly can.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up episode 36 of Squawk Ident. I hope you enjoyed the show, especially now during this time where we find ourselves in isolation in our homes and workplaces. And I want to make sure that on behalf of myself, Rob D, and Captain Roger, to say thank you to all the frontline workers out there. All the doctors, the nurses, pharmacists, medical techs, firefighters, law enforcement officers, grocery store clerks, truck drivers, and of course, all the airline employees that still show up to work every day to provide all the essential services that we need out there, especially now during this time. Are you enjoying Squawk Ident? I'd love to hear more about it. You can visit our website at www.aviatortony.com, where you can check out episode cover art, episode archives, the pilot shop, and you can also leave audio feedback. And now you can also check out the Flightline Photos tab, where we do our best to upload as many photos from the Flightline as we can. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter users can also search Squawk Ident Podcast or Aviator Tony and Squawk Ident to follow on the socials. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and you like what you hear, it would really help us out if you would just spend one moment and send us a like, leave a review, and a share. In closing, I'd like to just say thank you for taking the time to listen to this grateful aviator. Make sure you keep the dirty side down out there, be safe, and most importantly, take care of each other.